Hey, everybody, welcome to What the Flick. Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 5, Captive. Alonso Duralde from TheWrap and Linoleum Knife. Francis Maxwell from the pages of Italian Vogue. And so this week, you know, it's funny. It was a good 40 or so minutes before a walker showed up.
Yes.
And again, I don't watch Walking Dead. Has there ever been an episode of one of these shows without one? Like, is that just against the law?
No, there has been. And it's a reoccurring theme that kind of comes on. It didn't come until later on The Walking Dead when this thing that they've kind of installed it so much earlier on this show, and I like that. It's just a whole morality thing. Like, you begin to realize that the walkers aren't the threat. That's just the overarching theme from The Walking Dead. It's humanity's response to it is whether or not you're willing to just kind of see where the line is and just crash right through it. And I think that's kind of the main theme that we've been given in the last couple of episodes. And it's no surprise that we didn't get any walkers, because I mean that's one of the main reasons I was always kind of on board with Strand. I was like, you're on a boat. The only threat is yourself or other people coming out. You eliminate the threat of walkers when you're on the boat unless they start swimming aboard. But that's why it's no surprise to me that we will get more episodes, I imagine, when walkers start to play a large part. But they installed that theme really early.
Yeah. Well, and obviously at some point they're going to have to get off the boat, you know.
I imagine so.
But no, I think the underlying theme, sort of that I'm getting here, and I imagine with the other show too, is that you know, anybody can be ethical when everything is great.
Yes.
You know, it's how you retain your morality, your humanity, your ethics in a time of crisis, obviously, that it begins to matter. I did like the fact that once we got the walker on this show, that they gave us a little Weekend at Bernie's action, basically, which was my first thought when the guy shoots him in the face.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, well, maybe they'll just sort of pass him off as being alive by somehow like walking them. I was like, oh no, wait, he's going to become a zombie, so he'll do it himself, and
it's and that's where I think Chris is such an interesting character now that we've got our first case of, well, it seems like we might have two cases of real mental struggle going on, because Daniel, we now, to jump a little bit ahead but come back, he's starting to hear voices, I guess, when he was putting the hood over the walker, someone's telling him to grab the gun, but there's no one in the room, so I think he's struggling. I thought we were going to get an episode focused on him. I think that's going to come up soon. It's going to tell us about the demons in his past.
Yeah, we really haven't. In fact, at the very beginning, when we were seeing that whole
chopping of the
preparation of the steak, I was like, oh, is this Daniel's past? And he was a chef also, in addition to leading death squads or whatever, you know. So I thought we'd be getting that this week too, but obviously they're holding it for us.
And then we have Chris, who's obviously struggling with he at first we thought he was going to grow and become, because he seemed to get over the first I would say act of atrocity that he committed when he killed the gentleman who was on the plane, because he basically felt like he couldn't survive. Now in this scenario, yes, he's injured, but I think everyone knew that he wasn't going to turn anytime soon. Like he did have a wound, and then it showcases that he actually turned, so he never shot him, I guess, or if he did shoot him, he shot him in the mouth, but it didn't kill him through the brain because he was able to turn. So
exactly.
He's just retaliating, and he's trying to make amends for what he believes is his mistake.
Exactly. He feels bad for not having shot him when they originally came on the boat, and so he's sort of making up for it a couple of days later, which is a little late.
Yeah.
He's obviously going through some problems, and Nick, I think, the show seems to be suggesting that recklessness or adrenaline or whatever is his new addiction. You know, I love the scene where Madison says, you know, he doesn't want him to go. It's like, why? Because you want to.
Yes.
You know, and so obviously, if he's that, you know, if he's going after, it's sort of like, you know, gambling addiction or whatever. It doesn't have to be drugs. It's that same thing that gives you that high. If putting himself in these dangerous situations and walking amongst the walkers and all that stuff is his new thing, that's gonna get him killed.
Yeah, and we still haven't seen him openly tell anyone else on the boat that that's a strategy. I feel like he likes holding it to himself. I mean, I know some of them...
And he might not even acknowledge that that's what he's doing.
Yes.
He might think, I'm helping, I'm being useful. You know?
I think that some of them seen him when they were offshore and he was walking amongst them covered in blood, but I feel like he might... There's that side of the adrenaline rush that he wants to get. There's also the side that I think where he likes being needed and he likes to have his own niche where he can help. And there's also the side that maybe he feels like he's better equipped and doesn't want to see anything happen to his family because he knows that he can mix in well. He knows that he's mixes with the walkers and he's not putting himself at risk. But again, I haven't seen him say, by the way, when you do go offshore, cover yourself in walker blood and you will go disguised. But I almost feel like he's holding that close to his chest because he wants to remain needed.
Could be. I mean, you know, there's an argument to be made that as a drug addict, there was a suicidal streak in him anyway.
Yep.
And so he sort of sees his own death as being no big loss, and that's why he wants to sacrifice himself on behalf of the other people. It's a complicated character, and I think they're gonna be unpacking more of his sort of neuroses or whatever as we proceed. And I know I'm totally biased because she's my friend, but oh my God, Kim Dickens is so good on the show.
Yeah, she's fantastic. You interviewed her, right? She was on here.
Yes.
I remember when she was on before. She is fantastic. I love that switch. But it's the music played along with it. It was that sense when she was on the walkie-talkie talking, and she almost got the sense like, I was scared she was going to give it away and almost like let them know that something had happened. But then the music kind of dropped and she just switched like into negotiator mode, badass.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, right, no, you've got 1 hour. She makes the demands. And then it was genius execution to be able to
absolutely.
do so.
She totally plays that thing out brilliantly. And I love the conversation with Strand about what he recognized in Nick, because he's not exactly saying what that is.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily a good thing. But it's a thing that he's perfectly willing to exploit.
And I don't want to keep going back to Nick, but that's where I think Strand understands that. I don't know we haven't really got his past profession as much, but from what we get, he's a good negotiator and he's good at figuring out people.
And a good manipulator.
Yeah, manipulator. And I think he understands that Nick is a useful asset, because Nick has always walked in that line, like you mentioned. Maybe he had suicidal tendencies when he was a drug addict, or these things where he's almost got a disregard, and that can be very useful, because a lot of people will put themselves into compromised situations and basically blow it, as we've seen in The Walking Dead, when they can't handle these pressure situations. Whereas Nick's coming from this
if you're
past
lacking
life,
a preservation instinct, then
you're very useful.
The door,
yeah, so I think that Strand witnesses that, and obviously Madison's got that mother side where I think that will become a flaw, where she still views them as kids, when that's something that has to be let go of.
Obviously, they've done a lot of growing up in the last month, or however much time has elapsed on this show so far. Meanwhile, on the other boat, I was a little surprised that the base of operations for the other guys was on a dry docked boat.
Yes.
It was kind of like, wait, then what's your end game? I guess it's just amass as many moving boats as possible and then go somewhere?
Dock them and then figure out which one's best and take all the
strip
best.
For parts,
strip it for parts, I guess. But their operation, it shows, which is also great, by the way, because when you go with The Walking Dead, they go so fast that almost everyone's just picked up these unbelievable, almost like post-apocalyptic tools, where everyone just knows what to do in each situation. You meet a group of cannibals who suddenly are very good at being strategic, whereas this group show error. Like they're learning along with everyone else. They think they've got it figured out. They think they can just take over a boat because it's just ordinary civilians. But when you go into this world, that's what I love about these shows, is it brings out personality traits from characters that you least expect it. And that's what I think they underestimated them. And that was just a genius plan to be able to swap a walker. And that's where their naivety shows as well, because in The Walking Dead, to hate to continuously go back, like one walker being pushed into a crowd, you just disregard. Like you throw them over the edge. But they were so shocked that they just couldn't act, and they just got torn apart.
Yeah, no, obviously there's a relative lack of understanding of how this stuff works. They're getting into this world a lot. We're seeing a lot earlier version of this than on the other show. But, also it's interesting that there's this weird kind of, there's a kind of a cult-like thing going on there, where he's obviously very charismatic and is happy to take on a leadership position and sort of makes everybody feel like they're bringing something to the table, whether it's the pregnant girl or whatever. The woman from the raft obviously is, seeking revenge, in a weird way. I thought her stuff with Cliff Curtis. I'm so bad with the character names. I'm sorry.
With why we already know
you had it until I said it.
I was like ready to go. Travis.
Thank you.
But by the way, so let's put this out in the open. The show has flaws, there's no doubt, right? And I do like to engage with the comments, but it's so refreshing to just have a show with balls. That's what I keep saying about it, is they introduce a character almost as if he's this myth, like Connor's going to do this.
Right, yeah.
And then you just kill him. See you later, you're done. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if this was the other show, I'm like, oh my God, we'd have to wait 3 seasons to see that. We'd be teased and teased before we get it. But they just kill him off, and I love the question game now, where I'm thinking, who's the next antagonist? Who's the next antagonist? Is it going to be an internal conflict between our new, I would say, the person that they're bringing on who just shoots people from distance,
Right.
Strand's friend, is he going to be the antagonist? I imagine when
They
they
have to
go
go
to
find a new
Mexico,
one, yeah.
it's going to be a little bit of a conflict between who can they take. Chris has got his own conflicts because I do think that Reed's words lived it within his head about how he's the orphan and he might be left out, so he might be facing that internal conflict, and they're going to have to deal with the fact that he just committed an atrocity that could have put them all in jeopardy.
Right.
So I think that's where the conflict's going to come up in the next couple of episodes.
And
but I love that.
and they're going to meet Abigail too.
Yes.
Let's not forget that. So,
Exactly.
but no, there's a lot of talk about family on this show, and the idea of how do those ties remain strong when the world has gone to shit, you know? And they're obviously doing their best to maintain them and to keep everybody close. But obviously, you're seeing with the younger people, both Alicia and Chris have these conversations with people about what does family mean? What will they do for you? Will they abandon you when times get hard? That kind of thing. And I mean, certainly, if Madison is to be believed or it remains consistent, then yes, you can rely on family. But obviously, for other people, that's not necessarily a given. And so they have to figure out. What I think my favorite line this episode is early on when Reuben Blades says, "I've met men who inspired fear before. What they had in common was that none of them told you."
Yes, he's such a good character. And I feel like, I hope that they're saving a fantastic episode and exploring the depths of this character. I'm sure it will be next episode. I didn't see the next week on The Walking Dead or whatever. I didn't see that, so I'm just going to let it settle in my mind and hope that is so, because when they're posing this question about him hearing voices, I imagine that we're either going to get a look into his past, where I think he's so comfortable in this environment that he's come, and maybe he's been involved in some sort of war-torn era, maybe he's fought with a cartel before, we don't know. I'm
thinking some sort of like Reagan-era Central America shenanigans, you know, but yeah, who knows? I'm fascinated to find out.
And that's one of the characters that I feel I don't want them to mess up. I want them to develop him because I feel like he's going to be a major focal point in this, right? He's already lost his wife. How does he bounce back? He's got a daughter to look after, but he's just so calm in these chaotic situations. He knows what to do. I mean, who else would think there's a walker running at me? That's the difference between this group. They show signs of, I would say, essential
ingenuity.
Yes, exactly. I was trying to find the word. Compared to their antagonists who just panicked when a walker was starting. He's like, no, let's settle. So I want to see how he's got that experience. Like, what was his past to be able to handle the situation so well.
And the daughter's bandage hasn't been mentioned lately, so who knows? Maybe that finally healed, and we can all walk away from that. Anything else with this episode?
I'm trying to think. I mean, we've still got to find out what's going on with Alicia, and I don't even know why it was a question that she abandoned her love interest at that point. Like, you basically led a group to put your family in jeopardy. I don't care if you've got any sort of emotional tie.
Yeah, exactly. You kind of manipulated me on the radio. Then you ambushed us. Oh, and by the way, there's a walker down there that none of y'all seem to know how to deal with. So I'm just gonna get out of here.
He's like, you're gonna leave these people who just did this? No, I'm gonna leave you because you can't handle one walker. I'm out of here. I'll flip them off on the way down.
You and the pregnant chick can do whatever you want. I'm outie.
Apart from that, I think it's just the abandonee that they left on the raft. I feel like she is gonna make them feel the wrath. I could see her as sort of a building big bad for this plucky group. Yeah, so. And she, by the way, is a typical character that we probably have seen in The Walking Dead in general, where she's going to turn up to be pretty surprising, I think, because you don't seem to think that she maybe have all the tools to be able to survive this world. And I don't know, like her words to Travis were just plain cold. Yeah. She was like, making him feel every ounce of that pain.
Well, and she's probably going to discover resourcefulness out of her hatred of them.
Yes, exactly.
And that's going to inspire her to not only survive, but thrive and come the hell after them.
Yeah, because what did she say? Her line was like, people never use me or something like that.
Right.
So it's almost like, all right, well, you're going to regret not using me because I'm going to come back.
Totally.
So, we'll see.
All right, so yeah, interesting stuff. And we'll be back next week. Feel better, Tim?